What's good, everyone? Today I'll be going through my round 2 AFL tips and predictions. It was a crazy week of round 1 with so many smashings and one of the craziest upsets we've ever seen in recent AFL history. Looking at how I went though, it was an okay score. I don't think it was average though, because it was a 6 out of 9. However, I am sitting bottom 16% overall. At the moment, I think I'm sitting 810th in my tipping competition, which isn't great. I think I've got 1,050 members, so if you haven't already, join that tipping competition down below for your chance to win prizes. The grand prize is $400. The wheel prize is given away and a chance to get weekly shout-outs as well. We're going to try and see if we can get more members than Tony Lockett has kicked goals by the end of the month. So join the comp. It's down in the description. But looking at my tips, though, for the round, we'll go through the ones I got wrong. So obviously, I did tip the Blues to beat the Tigers, and it was looking great in the first half. I mean, no one really tipped Richmond, let's be honest. And just gradually, the Tigers just found their way back into the game by kicking goals and just making the Blues panic. And they panicked enough to actually drop the game. Hawthorn and Geelong, I got their tips right. This game, I got incorrect. The Swans, I thought I'd back him in again. And they were really close. It was really annoying to see them lose that. I watched the end of the game on the train and they're up by 4 goals early. Brisbane just slowly got the game back on their terms, and from there it was a little bit too hard for the Swans. They were just too good. The Lions, unfortunately, in this one as well. Geez, I went North Melbourne, and I was at this game, and I was riding on North throughout the whole game, and they just could never find the lead. The Dogs just always seem to have the answers, and it was I mean, you could say an honourable loss, but North wouldn't be happy with any more honourable losses in 2025. And it was a good finish to the round. I got the next 4 tips correct, putting myself with a score of 6 out of 9. But yeah, it definitely wasn't great, especially when we compare it to the best scorers of round 1. And the best scorer of round 1 was Mitch Semmens with a score of 16 and a margin of 3. Now, of course, all of them in orange signify they use the Joker, which means they get double points for that round. So he would have tipped Richmond there. Joshua Coates, Fernando Fazio, Duffel Stars, and Sam Gleeson were the best scorers of round 1. But the best tippers of round 1 actually were to these 3 people, all getting a perfect score, 9 out of 9 plus the correct bonus. They all tipped Richmond, and Manning J23 tipped a perfect score and a perfect margin. Honestly, a great way to start round 1. Now, looking at the total score, unbelievably, it's Shannon Humphries leading the way with a score of 18, but he did use the Joker last week and this week, so I don't expect that lead to stay for much longer. Mitch Semmens, Sam Geeson, Lover, Murphs, Lover, and Joshua Coates were also in the top 5 there. Now, I just want to give a quick mention to the worst performer. Let's call it the stinker of the week, stinker of the round. Corns. He scored 0. He tipped every single game wrong. That's arguably more impressive and more hard to do than tipping every single game right. So, yes, he got a score of 0 and he's 1,016th in my comp, but he's almost going to be my legend of the week for actually achieving that feat. So well done to Corns. Now, if we take a look at AFL Fantasy real quick, you'll see that Jacob R leads the way with 2,241 points, which puts him 25th overall. That's incredible. Jaden, Daniel, Jaden, and Jamal also round out the top 5. And I'm actually okay with my score of 2,094, 54th, a lot better than my tipping comp. If you guys want to join my fantasy comp as well as my ESPN footy tipping comp, the links are down below in the description. And if you're interested to see, me doing updates every single week with fantasy, I'll be posting a video on my second channel later tonight, and that'll end up being a members only series. So if you want to help support the channel, if you're interested in that sort of stuff, then feel free to become a member. The link will be down below in the description. Now, of course, I did not forget about the big calls for last week. We'll have to go through them. Let's go through the ones I got correct. The first game, I said that Sam Lawler and Lucas Camporelli would combine for 2 or more goals, and thankfully Lawler did all the hard work there with the 2 goals, getting me off the mark very early on. And in the North v Bulldogs game, I said that Larkey and Darling combined for 6 or more goals, and it was Larkey that thanked me there in that one with the 5 goals. So I was looking good, but unfortunately, that is all I got. I only got 2 out of 9, and I got a few that I was really annoyed about. I was actually quite close with some of them. For example, Essendon Hawthorn, I said there'd be 65 or more points scored by Hawks in the half. They scored 64 in the first half. I said Brisbane would have 15 or more behinds against Sydney. They had 14 behinds. And I even said that the crowd would exceed 25k for Melbourne v GWS. And it was only 23k. So, geez, I was disappointed with that. But of course, as per the punishments every single week in the tipping comp, we'll go to find the most liked comment. And it was Quady who said that I would have to go to any AFL game with both of the team's jerseys and switch the team that scores every time, even if it's a behind. Looks like if this is going to happen, it'll be at the Carlton v Bulldogs game in round 3 on a Friday night. But I think I'll maybe post some of this stuff on my second channel. and for like TikTok and Instagram. So I'll subscribe to my chicken channel. The link will be down below. That's where I'm going to be posting all my punishments for this year, plus some extra content. And once again, the votes are open for round 1 as well. Links are in the description. Vote for your best plays for the round, 3 to 1 of every game. And at the end of the year, we'll be doing a live stream, kind of like the Brownlow, and then that'll determine what the fans think will be the best player of the 2025 season. So if you want to get around that and be part of it, vote below. Voting closes before the first bounce on Thursday night. And whilst you're at it as well, we are also trying to hit the goal of 44,000 subscribers by the end of the month. So we've got over 50% of the people watching that haven't even hit the subscribe button. So if you're enjoying the footy stuff, footy tipping, vlogs, and then so much more that I'll be posting as well over the next few weeks and throughout the whole year, then check the subscribe button and let's head straight into the tips. Starting things off on the Thursday night, we do have Carlton taking on Hawthorn, and with the way both of the sides played last week, it probably wouldn't surprise me at all if there are many people here just not thinking twice about who to tip. Obviously, Hawthorn starting the season off with 2 wins in a row, probably looking like the premiership favourites at the moment. Now, with the Blues, I could see it going one or two ways, because obviously they were terrible last week. It could either continue to get worse, they could plummet once again and just show the same poor efforts, or they bring out some sort of response, which I think is what the players need to do. You know, Michael Voss under a lot of pressure. The fans are just going to want to see it, because at the moment, I don't know what's to think of the Blues, because is it really a matter of how shit they are, or is it more of maybe Richmond aren't that bad of a side? I'm not going to lie, I haven't seen a group of 23 players shit themselves more as much as Carlton did in that second half. It was absolutely crazy. I mean, they were up by 41 points, and slowly there was just that wave of momentum that Richmond brought with the fans as well, and you could just see it hit the Blues, and they just didn't know what to do. They were panicky, fumbly with the footy. Didn't have a plan going up forward, kept bombing it. Everyone wanted to try and be the hero at the end. I mean, Nick Haynes, yeah, don't come Monday with all the drop marks you had as well. Really, really poor performance from Carlton, especially against the Richmond side that many expected not to win. All of them were basically teenagers. Yeah, look, you just need a response. Are Carlton going to be this bad this year? Hawthorn, obviously, with their win against Essendon, it seemed like they had the game kind of won at quarter time. Essendon made it a contest after quarter time, to be fair, and all credit to them, but it was sort of led by the likes of Ginnivan and Watson kicking 3 goals apiece. Dylan Moore played a pretty good game, and yeah, they never really looked like losing that one as well. So, look, Carlton, I can't see them really getting close if they don't change things up heading into the next week. I don't know why Doherty was the sub. Have him start. Have Silvani in the 4 line, because he showed some promising sides to help actually get the side the win in that last quarter. And who knows, maybe Hawthorn going to this one way too overconfident and cocky. Maybe Roaming has what he posted last week is going to curse them heading into this week. But I just don't think it's going to happen. Even if, you know, Kerno comes back to the side, that'll help a little bit. But their 4 line's a little bit of a mess at the moment, and they're just not really playing together. It isn't great at the moment for the Blues, and it's just really hard to go past the Hawks. I mean, they could potentially win Carlton. I think they'll definitely make things kind of close for bits, but Hawthorn are going to get a 19-point win with my big call that there'll be 5 or more lead changes in the first half. Next up, we've got the Western Bulldogs take on Collingwood at the MCG for their 100th anniversary clash. So, yeah, the Dogs typically don't play home games at the G. It's been probably the first game they've played there since the 2000s, and it'll be a hard task to come up against a red-hot Collingwood side that finally repaid my faith of me having them winning the flag for my later predictions, and they had a massive win over Port Adelaide by 91 points. Leading the 4 line as well, Tim Membry, proving why he's such a good recruit. He kicks 4 goals. McStay, Maicha kick 3. And they're now looking like they're going to be one of the more dangerous 4 lines in the comp for sure, especially that trio of the Triple M. Dan Houston back in the lineup for Collingwood, his first game against his former side, and he was taking the piss. He was huge for them. He just adds a new dynamic to the way Collingwood move the footy. You know, he's such a damaging player when he moves the ball off half back with his kicking. The Bulldogs also had a very good win against the Kangaroos. Yeah, I know it was against North Melbourne, but they did have a lot of outs. Obviously, their injury list is still a pretty big one, and I think they did the job quite well, honestly. They started the game off with I think 5 or 6 of the first 7 or 8 goals, and that kind of set the tone early on. It made it difficult for North to make that fight back, and when they did, the Bulldogs seemed to have the answers. I thought Fraser played really well, and I also reckon Ed Richards had a really good game. Latham Vandermeer kicked 3 goals at forward, so the sort of lesser known plays for the Dogs getting the job done, these role plays, I reckon could maybe do enough potentially against the Pies here. Just, I feel like 100th anniversary game, could they rise up to the occasion? I know there's going to be a lot of Collingwood fans, but I just feel like the Dogs could do what the Saints did last year in a way. I don't know, and they seem to always play well against the Pies. We always seem to get some pretty good encounters between these two teams, and if Darcy can start off well, take those clunks, you know, Aaron Norton played well in the round 1, maybe could back things up in round 2. there's every chance that maybe the Dogs could claim a bit of a sneaky Friday night upset to start off the round. And I might back them in. I feel like, if there's an upset, I can see it being the Dogs because of the 100th game anniversary. I know there'll be a bit more pressure. They'll be known as Footscray for this one, but I'm going to say Footscray Bulldogs win this game by 8 points with my big call. There'll be 205 more points combined. The next game we have is on the Saturday afternoon. Essendon taking on Adelaide. Interestingly enough, it's the second game consecutively that a Marvel-based home tenant is playing their home game at the MCG. I think this is certainly the most difficult game so far to pick. The odds and also the tips is it's a little bit more even, but I am definitely leaning more towards the Crows just with the way they play. They absolutely dominated against the Saints, and obviously I watched the game. I saw it firsthand, and it was honestly over from the word go. They were just all over the footy. Obviously, they've got one of the fittest sides in the competition, so they had all their stars playing, and when that's the case, it really helps. You had Dawson in the midfield, Soligo, Rankin, Thilthorpe, Fogarty, Rochelle. I know I'm naming all the stars. Silky, smooth, clinical, the footy. There was a period as well where the Crows, I think, kicked 5 goals in 7 minutes. So they just seemed to do everything with ease. It may have been a bit to do with St Kilda's lack of pressure at times and their sloppy skills, unable to transition the ball. Adelaide seemed to do everything so much more easier, and it looks like Adelaide might be back this year. It was at home game, massive win, round 1. I think Essendon right now are a bit better than the Saints just with their lineup right now and the way they've been playing their footy. I know a lot of people were angry at me last week when I said that Essendon really suck. It was sort of more just to get a bit of a clickbaity title. And in fairness, I was at the game and the game was over at quarter time. Essendon just had a really poor start. And whilst they did contend in the second, third, fourth quarters, actually pegged the margin back more towards their favour. They never really looked like winning the game. It never really seemed like they were really challenging to hit that lead because whenever they did get a goal or two, Hawthorn would always respond. But I thought they were at least gallant in their defeat in a way. These two teams do play off in thrillers as of late. I think the last 3 or 4 games we've seen some really close ones between these two sides. Adelaide just haven't been able to beat Essendon convincingly. It's either Essendon get a close win, Adelaide get a close win, or Essendon breeze past them. I know it's at the MCG, and the Crows don't typically, get the results at the G, but I think they're set for a really good year this year, the Crows. They're going to take it up to new heights, and I think they're going to start the season 2-0. It's going to be probably the game of the round, maybe, I reckon. It's going to be one of the closer games, I think, but I'm going to say the Crows get the job done by 4 points, with Riley Thilthorpe kicking 5 more goals. The next game we have is Port Adelaide taking on Richmond. What the hell happened to Port? He came off the back of a disappointing finish of the year and losing a prelim in 2024. You want to respond, and you just dish up absolute shite like that. I didn't watch the game as mentioned before, 91 points, but from what I've been told from a few people, they just made way too many mistakes. They were slipping over at crucial times. They tried to transition the ball through the middle, but constantly would get cut off by Collingwood, and then they just, move the ball forward, and they were just in too much open space, the Pies. You just couldn't really ask for much worse for start to the season for the Power, to be honest. I bet they'd be wishing they'd still had Dan Houston. I guess it makes my call for them to finish 14th not look so bad, but damn, this succession plan I don't think is going to go well for the Power this year, because you still have Ken in charge, but he knows he's not going to be the coach for them next year, so does it really feel like he's really doing much? It's in a way like he's not needed. Who's giving the players directions? Is it Carr? Is it Hinkley? And you think, oh, well, they're playing against Richmond. Surely that's going to give them a bit of confidence. I don't know. Richmond, they were pretty good on the weekend against the Blues. With every Richmond goal as the game progressed, their confidence built up more and more. The youngsters were more hungry for the footy. Ross had his, the best game he's ever played. Lawler had an awesome debut performance, winning the Rising Star nom. Trainer was good. Bauer was good. You could name so many plays. Taranto and Hopper got on top in the midfield after half-time. Then Curtis had a really good game. And a lot of these plays that, honestly, let's be real, I've never really heard of. They were outplaying Carlton, and they just wanted to win that game more. The thing is, right, are people a bit too reactionary here? How are 21% going Richmond? I know they won last week and Port were terrible, but it's at the Adelaide Oval. Can Richmond really do it again? Do they have what it takes to do that again? And do Port Adelaide have what it takes to just not respond whatsoever? I think as well they'll be expecting Richmond to be not as shit as what I'm sure Carlton were expecting to be. And I just feel like Port will respond, but they're not going to respond emphatically. I think it's going to be one of those really boring, low-scoring, scrappy games of footy. Richmond's defence will hold on quite well, but themselves will just fail to put on enough of a score. And I'm going to say Port Adelaide win the game by 33 points with my big call that Port Adelaide will score 90 or less points. Next up, we have Saturday night footy at Marvel Stadium. St Kilda taking on Geelong. And oh my goodness. Really, tipsters? 2% the Saints are at? I get because of what happened last week and all, but 10 times more people are going for Richmond than they're going for St Kilda. I don't know. I don't know if that sort of adds up, to be honest. As a Saints fan, I'm a little bit nervous for this matchup, especially with the way, Geelong played on the weekend. The Saints, when we looked off from the word go, I could already tell that we're going to lose by like 10 goals after the first 5-10 minutes. We considered the first 5 goals of the game. We just never really got anything going. Obviously, you could blame the excuse of the fact that obviously, our list is just not quite there yet. Our forward line was makeshift. We didn't have anyone up there really providing the targets. Harry Boyd was all right. Max Hall as well. It was just a disappointing game. Our leaders didn't step up. Marshall was battling an injury. Sinclair, Hill, Steele, they were just not really sighted. Down defense, we were also leaking goals and we're just turning the ball over. When we tried to move the ball, we just kept turning the ball over and we just found it so much harder than for Adelaide to score ourselves. Of course, the Cats, they were awesome on the weekend. No one really expected them to come out the way they did and beat Freo, who are a top 4 claim side. A lot of people are saying by 78 points. Yes, it was at GMHBA, but from the word go, they looked on and they were just moving the ball so freely. And they had all their guns, performing well. De Koning looked really good in the ruck. Like, how lucky are the Cats? They bring in a player like Bailey Smith and he plays that well. BOG performance in his first game. How much better is he going to get as the season progresses? Jeremy Cameron didn't even have his best game, yet he still kicked 4. It probably did help that the Cats were really accurate in front of goals. And again, the Dockers' lack of pressure was definitely on site. The last 3 performances the Saints have had against the Cats have been wins, but with a forward line that honestly will be lucky to string together more than 10 goals. Against the Cats side that scored 10 goals in the quarter last week, we could be in a bit of trouble, but I'm actually honestly a little bit optimistic that we can make things a bit close, at least for the first half of the bit. I'm going to say the Cats do win the game, but I'm going to say only by 14 points. I'm actually going to go my big call. Saints lead at halftime. I think we're going to expect a response and we're going to be in the game at least at the start. Next matchup is the first game on Sunday at the Gabba, 1:10. We have Brisbane and West Coast. You couldn't really ask for more of a one-sided matchup if you tried. Actually allowing the Suns to break their all-time record of highest ever winning margin. And that was a home game for West Coast. And we all know how bad the Suns have been away as of late. The fact that they managed to do that round 1. What can I really say? I watched the whole game with Andy Munro. I expected this to be one of the closest games of the round. And West Coast brought out nothing. You could sort of tell they were off from the first quarter. I think the inside 50 counts. I think the Suns had like 22, 23. But then as the game progressed, the goals kept on coming. And West Coast just had no answers. They looked so far off it. Got absolutely smashed in the midfield. The clearances, I just don't want to know what the count is. Rail and Anderson particularly, they were just taking the piss. They were that much more dominant. Harley Reid, I thought was poor. Tim Kelly in the midfield just got beaten up too much. Matt Flynn got absolutely demolished in the ruck contest. I think Witts ended up with like 70 or more hitouts, and they were very much missing a player like a Tom Barras. Waterman, I think, might be a possible injury concern. I just cannot see a world where they lose this game by any less than 50 points. I think the Lions are going to take them to the sword. And maybe Brisbane not all the time do this, but it's at the Gabba, so even if they play in first, second gear, they still probably win by 8+ goals. They obviously won against the Swans on the weekend. It was a solid win, especially given the circumstances in the lead-up. Obviously, they didn't really get much of a chance to train due to Cyclone Alfred, and the Swans had an extra game in their hands back at home as well. Dunkley, though, he was awesome in the midfield, McCluggage, and if Neil probably won't get tagged against the Eagles, so they're just going to absolutely put on a show, you would think. I know Lohman and Starcevic are both out with injuries, but Cameron, who wasn't playing against the Swans, should come back, so it'd be a bit of a like-for-like replacement. He could kick a bag of 5 or 6. I'm going to have to say Brisbane to win this game by 73 points. My big call, Brisbane to have 100 or more touches. Next up on the Sunday, 3:20 p.m. at Marvel, we've got North Melbourne taking on Melbourne. And once again for North Melbourne, it was just another honourable loss for them. And they just can't keep up with these performances. I mean, yes, they're showing a bit more glimpses. They're showing more signs. I feel like this was finally their opportunity to actually get off to a really good start and beat up on a side like the Bulldogs, who obviously had quite a large injury list. They're the sort of side they can score in half a field. But yeah, they just defence once again, leaking goals. 113 points against the Bulldogs side with no Jamari Ugle-Hagan or Waitman. A bit disappointing and a little bit concerning. I think it could be a similar story for Melbourne. They don't have the greatest forward line, but I feel like they could still probably put on a pretty big score against North Melbourne. I thought the D's looked good, despite obviously losing against the Giants. They didn't lose any followers. It was a 3-point loss. Lindsay, I thought in his first game, played really well. Jefferson kicked a couple goals. Petrarca looked good, so did Gawn. So yeah, if they can get Stephen May back into this lineup again, it's going to make things a little bit easier for them. It's the sort of game that I think North Melbourne would be expecting to get a result, their fans, but they're only 8% of the people are tipping them, and it's at home for them again as well for North Melbourne. Melbourne aren't the best side at Marvel, so I can very much see North Melbourne winning this game, but Melbourne I think could be a better side than what I was initially thinking. And they just have a tiny bit more class, I reckon, especially more leadership in the midfield and up forward as well. I think they might be able to get it done here. So I'm going to go Melbourne to win the game by 15 points with my big call, Christian Petrarca and Clayton Oliver combined for 60 or more disposals. And the final game of the round at Optus Stadium, to no surprise, it's Fremantle taking on Sydney. This is probably the most even game when it comes to the tipsters, with 53% going Freo and 47% going Sydney. You could argue this is a bit of a mini final for both sides. I mean, the loser can either go 0-2 or 0-3. I just was not expecting the performance that they delivered against the Cats at GMHBA, because they're normally a pretty plucky side there. They've won in previous occasions, but just like some other games this round, it just felt like they were out of it from the first quarter, and from the first, second quarters onwards, it looked like they were off the pace. And in that last quarter, it really felt like they gave up a lot of their plays, especially defensively. Like, what was Ryan, Pierce, Cox, I thought they were quite poor in that last quarter especially, and too many basic mistakes I thought were made as well. Up forward, Amiss and Tracy were basically useless. Reedy was useless in the ruck, so it was a disappointment for the Dockers. Bad day, but I think they can respond against Sydney, who also need to respond as well. I didn't think they were that bad against the Lions, but I wasn't really able to watch much of the game as mentioned before. I think they kicked the first 4 goals, and I was looking like, geez, I might get this tip right. The class of Brisbane slowly got on top, and the Swans weren't able to respond back, and unfortunately, they slipped their lead in the third quarter and couldn't gain it back. Heaney kicked a strong goal late. I think he was one of their best plays, but not enough, unfortunately, and losing that game. I think Fremantle as well. I think they'll be a better team than Sydney. I'm still bullish on them. They'll probably have Shai Bolton back, and at home as well in front of their fans, this will be a bit of a different story. I think they're going to come out with a statement performance at home and win big. I'm going to say by 37 points, with my big call that the Dockers lead for the entire game. So let's just review the tips real quick. We went the Hawks by 19, the Bulldogs in my upset call, Adelaide, Port Adelaide, Geelong, Brisbane, Melbourne, and Freo. There are 2 buys as well with Gold Coast and GWS, but still, hopefully I can maybe get a better score than 6. If you want to leave your tips down below, feel free to leave a punishment as well. Make sure they're appropriate. And yeah, all the links to the tipping comps and all that are in the description. I'll see you soon in my next video tomorrow for my round 1 vlog.